Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Light-4j tutorial by Coding Muscles. This is chapter 2, where we will be using a code gen tool which is provided by Network NT to create a Light-4j application. We'll have to do some actual coding in this video, so without wasting any time, let's get into it. So, the first step is to have code gen and model configuration in your local system. Link for code gen and model config will be pasted in the description below. You can check them out. So, let's start by going into code gen. Okay, so to download CodeGen, we go to this link and we can download different versions of CodeGen. So for this tutorial, let's just go with 1.6.44. I'll go to my desktop. So I'll just create a new folder on my desktop, work, do a git bash, git clone. All right, so I have taken the checkout of Light CodeGen. Next is to take the checkout of the model config. All right, let me open my IntelliJ. Go to my desktop and Light CodeGen. I'm opening it as a Maven project, and of course, I trust it. So I have imported the Light CodeGen into IntelliJ, and I think its dependencies are being downloaded. So meanwhile, we can continue with our presentation. Okay, so we need to have CodeGen and model config, of which we have taken the checkout, and I am also posting a link for Open API generator. You can go have a look. So basically, what it's saying is, in order to create a Light4j project, we need to give them a configuration file. They will have specifications on what has to be created. So like name, version, group ID, and artifact ID, those kind of stuff. Also, if we want it to be HTTP and or HTTPS, or what should the port of HTTP and HTTPS be. Also, if you're planning to have a database, so support database and the DB info has to be provided. So this is one of the sample file, and this is the config.json file for Petstore. So the group ID is com.networknt, and where will the handlers be, where will all the models be, and if there is a database, then database connectivity. In that case, we have to provide which database it is and what is their connectivity, URL, port, username, and password, that kind of stuff. So not all of this is necessary, but in case you are using some component like database, in that case you will have to give at least this much information, and also make sure that the support DB is true. So this is directly from the network NT documentation. In this, the next step is to first of all do a Maven clean install on the project. So what it will do is essentially uh, it will create us a light code gen jar, and we will be using that jar and providing it two files, configuration files, and a config.json file and a openapi.json file, both of which are configuration files, and we will create our Light4j project. All right, so our build is successful, and this code gen CLI jar is created at the target directory. Okay. So as I said before, we need to provide them two files. One is config.json and another one is openapi.json. So the both are JSON files. Config.json is mostly having the server specific things like port number or location of endpoints, and openapi.json contains the specification for microservices, at what endpoints it is, what kind of request and response will be sent into those endpoints, like which data would be flowing in. Maybe a string will be going in and a object will be coming out. So OpenAPI specification is also known as Swagger specifications. All right, so now we need to run a command in order to create the Light-4j project. So, so let me go to my terminal. So the command is, I have to refer to the codegen-cli.jar, which is right here. So currently my present working directory is, I'm at light codegen. I'm here and I need to go here. So I'm going to do a java-jar. This means that we will be executing the codegen jar. I'll go into codegen CLI, target, and codegen CLI.jar. All right. And the second thing is -f, and I'm specifying that I'm giving you OpenAPI configuration file. The next is -o, and then we have to give the path output folder. I'll just copy the location of the work folder that I created on my desktop. And I'm giving a new directory, light1, in which the folder should be created. Next up, we have -m, and we have to give the path to openapi.json. So remember the model configuration we downloaded? So basically this folder is going to have a lot of configuration for different kinds of APIs. So if you go into this location, the model configuration, REST, OpenAPI, Petstore 1.0.0, you will see that there is a openapi.json and config.json. So we will be using these two files to create our Light-4j project. So let's look at the config.json. So basically it is running at port 8080. Its HTTP port is 8080, but HTTP is set to false. Its HTTPS port is true and is set to 8443. The the model and handler root packages are defined here, and the version is also defined here. So this is the base that will be used to build our Light-4j application. And then there's the openapi.json, which has the configuration of which APIs it will pre-create and what kind of data they will be returning. So in -m, we have to provide openapi.json. In -c, we have to provide config.json. So let's go ahead and do that. -m. If I come back and go into model config, REST OpenAPI Petstore, REST OpenAPI Petstore 1, and openapi.json. And then we do a -c, back, go into model config, REST OpenAPI Petstore 1, and config.json. So our command is complete. Let me repeat that once again. Java-jar is the standard to execute any .jar file. We give the path to codegen-cli that we just generated. -f, we specify that we'll be using the OpenAPI specification. -o, we give the output folder where the new project will be created. In -m, we give the openapi.json configuration file, and in -c, we give the config.json file. So if I run this command, all right, so a line here says a project has been generated successfully in desktop work light1 folder, which I provided as one of the parameters in the previous command. So let's go ahead and check that out. All right, so with the help of codegen and model config, we were able to create a light1 project. So at this point, we can close our IDE, or rather open the light1 project. All right, the IDE is resolving its POM dependencies at this moment. It's good to go. All right. So now if we run the command mbed clean install exec, so it will execute this project, and it will use its own undertow server to launch the Light-4j application that we just created. All right, so it says that the HTTP port is disabled, and on HTTPS port has been started on port 8443. It did so because in the configuration it was provided that that HTTP is not enabled and HTTPS is enabled. So we can open Postman now. Try to hit localhost server/server/info. We got the HTTPS. All right. So it might give you a certificate has expired error. So in order to fix that, we can go into the settings of Postman and turn off the SSL certificate verification. Okay, so response is 200 and our API is working. It gave us some data which doesn't make too much sense at the moment, but that's fine. Basically, it is giving some server information and some configurations. So we have our configuration running. If we want to enable debugging option, what we can do is we can go to edit configuration, add a new application, name it something like, let's go with light one. It is using the Java 19, and the class would be server.server, pom.networknt server.server. No arguments required. Apply. All right. So now it'll do the same thing as we did from running the maven execute command, this one, but now we'll have the debugging option enabled as well. So if we put a breakpoint on some of the source code, we'll be able to see what's going on. Okay, so basically I'm getting error that there are no ports available. This can happen because some of the Java programs are not properly closed. So what I do is I go to cmd and I execute this command taskkill -f-im java.exe. So what it's gonna do is it makes it easier for me to easily kill all the Java processes that are running. Okay, so as we see, there are some Java processes that are running. As soon as I execute this command, all the Java processes have been closed, and I can rerun it in debugging mode. All right, it has been started on port 8443. Let's go check it out. Yep, everything is working. All right, so this was the setup for the Light-4j project. So let's do some head-to-head comparison with Spring. So both uses pom.xml file, both Spring and Light4j. Now the difference is that to create a new project in Spring, most likely the method to do it is to go into Spring Initializer. And here we give the name of the project that we want and add some dependencies like web, which adds a tomcat server, and lombok or any other requirements. So Spring uses the Spring Initializer, whereas the new projects in Light-4j are created using codegen. So Spring Boot uses the Tomcat as their default container to run their application. So as soon as you press the play button, you see the logs are generating and the application is running. And Light4j similarly uses the undertow as their default server. Main class file of any Spring Boot application is applications.java. It has the main function, which is usually just one line, but most importantly, it has the annotation of Spring Boot application. Whereas on Light4j, the server.server is the file that is used for running or debugging as an application. So in summary, we took the checkout of codegen and model config. We opened the codegen project and ran the Java command on the codegen CLI and passed the openapi.json and the config.json. And the project output was also specified, and command ran and created a folder output at the specified path. After that, we opened it in IntelliJ IDE and ran the maven clean install execute command. Alternatively, we can also add server.java as an application. After running, we can hit either service on the localhost port 8080 or port 8443 for HTTPS. So that's the end of chapter 2. Thanks for watching Coding Muscles, and I'll see you next time.